Why is money so hard? It's rarely a clean math problem, is it? For most of us, money isn't just numbers on a screen. It's a mix of childhood memories, stress, hope, and that constant pressure to look like we have it all together, even when the world feels anything but stable. Think about it. Long before you earned your first real paycheck, your ideas about money were already taking shape. Maybe it was from overhearing your parents worry about bills at the kitchen table. Or maybe it was seeing a credit card magically save the day when cash was tight. These moments don't feel like financial lessons at the time, but they become the emotional shortcuts our brains use for decades. In our daily lives, money often becomes a stand-in for safety. A steady income isn't just for groceries. It's buying us peace of mind. And when that feeling of stability is threatened, our brains flip into survival mode. We make decisions faster, more emotionally, and with a lot less thought. This is why we might impulsively spend money during stressful times, even knowing it'll cause problems later. Our brains are wired to fix discomfort. Asterisk. Now, asterisk. Not to plan for a perfect future. Spending can feel like taking back control, even when it's quietly slipping away. Modern life just turns up the volume on all of this. The economy moves way faster than our brains ever evolved to handle. Jobs feel less permanent, and the pressure to compare ourselves is everywhere. We scroll through social media and see everyone else upgrading their homes, their cars, their vacations. It creates this silent fear of being left behind. This fear doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It shows up as small justifications for purchases that feel reasonable in the moment but add up over time. This is where debt gets emotionally complicated. It's not just borrowed money. It's delayed discomfort. Credit helps us smooth over the gaps between our income and our expectations. It softens embarrassment and buys us a little more time. But the problem is that borrowed time always shows up eventually, and when it does, it often brings a heavy dose of shame. That shame makes us avoid looking at the numbers, which just keeps the cycle going. Even the financial systems we use are designed to shape our behavior. Paychecks arrive on schedules that train our spending habits. Bills pile up at the same time each month, creating a rhythm of anxiety. Rewards programs and subscription models are built to make spending easy and to encourage us to just not think about it. So here's the thing. Struggling with personal finance isn't a sign that you're bad at math. It's that our money decisions are rarely about money alone. They're about our identity, our sense of belonging, and our deep-seated desire to just feel okay. People don't fail with money because they don't understand the numbers. They struggle because emotions often shout louder than logic, especially when life feels uncertain. Understanding this isn't an excuse for bad choices, but it does explain them. And once you have an explanation, you can start to find clarity. When you see a financial behavior not as a personal failure, but as a predictable human response to pressure, the entire conversation changes. Why do we make money decisions that we know aren't great for us? It's not about being bad with money. It's about being human. Most of our financial choices don't happen when we're calm and focused. They happen when we're tired, stressed, or in a rush between meetings. Latte at night or waiting in line at the store. Our brains treat money decisions just like any other choice, but we only have so much mental energy to go around. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. After a long day, when that energy is gone, we default to what's easy, not what's smart. That's why we let subscriptions renew automatically, overlook small charges, and sometimes spend just to avoid making one more decision. It doesn't feel reckless. It feels like relief. Then there's the payday effect. When money hits your account, there's a rush of abundance. Suddenly, you feel optimistic. That new gadget seems possible, and that fancy dinner feels deserved. But as the days pass and your balance drops, that feeling flips. Caution and stress take over. This emotional roller coaster repeats every month, shaping our habits without us even realizing it. Money is also tied to our identity. The car you drive, the phone you use, the vacation photos you post, these aren't just purchases. They're stories we tell about ourselves. In a world that often links worth to what we own, spending can feel like a way to keep up, while cutting back can feel like you're falling behind. Financial stress also messes with our perception of time. When money is tight, the future gets blurry. Immediate needs feel urgent, while long-term goals seem distant. This isn't a character flaw. It's a biological response to scarcity. It narrows our focus to what's right in front of us. Modern systems make this even harder. One-click payments and tap-to-pay are designed for convenience, removing any moment for us to pause and think. The less a purchase feels like a real decision, the easier it is to make it again and again until it becomes an automatic habit. The thing is, just knowing all this doesn't magically change our behavior. People can understand their financial situation is delicate and still act against their own best interests. This creates guilt, which makes us want to hide. Money becomes a topic we avoid, and the silence only gives it more power over us. So, personal finance isn't just a test of willpower. It's a complex dance between our emotions, our environment, and our expectations. You're not broken if you struggle with money. You're simply human, navigating a system that's constantly pushing you to decide, compare, and cope when you're least prepared. Understanding this doesn't fix everything overnight, but it does replace judgment with insight. It gives you the space to see your patterns, to pause, and to remember that money habits are learned then. Anything learned can be changed. Have you ever noticed how money starts to feel like a person by the time you're an adult? It can seem demanding, unpredictable, even judgmental. For so many of us, it's not something we feel in control of, but something we're constantly reacting to. Bills sew up, emergencies happen, and life just gets in the way of our plans. After a while, we stop seeing money as a tool and start feeling it as a force acting on us. This is often where avoidance starts to creep in. Looking closely at your finances can bring up a lot of anxiety because it forces you to face uncertainty. Those numbers on the screen can feel so final, even when they're not. So what do? We delay opening our bank statements. We ignore our account balances, and we put off making big decisions. This avoidance gives us a little bit of temporary calm, but it also lets small problems grow quietly in the background. Our brains are wired to prefer that short-term emotional relief over long-term clarity, especially when that clarity feels uncomfortable. There's also a powerful link between money and our sense of self. In our culture, financial success is often seen as a measure of personal responsibility. So when our finances are stable, we credit our hard work. But when they're not, we tend to blame ourselves. This turns money into a scoreboard for our personal value. Even though so many factors like layoffs, medical bills, or a shifting economy are completely outside of our control, these events feel personal, even when they're systemic. This tension even shows up in our family dynamics. Parents might avoid talking about money with their kids to shield them from stress. But in doing so, they accidentally pass down silence instead of financial understanding. Partners might dodge detailed money talks to avoid an argument. Over time, money becomes this private, emotionally charged topic that we rarely examine together. And that isolation makes it so much harder to see the patterns we fall into. At the same time, hope and fear are pulling us in opposite directions. Many of us believe that a future raise, a promotion, or a better job will solve today's money problems. This optimism isn't foolish. It's what helps us get through uncertain times. But it can also become an excuse to postpone tough choices. On the other hand, there's the fear of falling behind, fear of not having enough, fear of one unexpected bill wiping out years of hard work. This emotional whiplash makes our financial behavior reactive and inconsistent, driven more by our mood than by a clear plan. What we rarely talk about is just how exhausting this constant emotional negotiation is. Money demands our attention even when we're tired, stressed, or grieving. It doesn't pause for life events, and that constant pressure wears us down. Eventually, many of us stop trying to optimize our finances and just settle for survival. The goal becomes just getting through the month, not building for the future. But here's the important part. These behaviors are incredibly common. They aren't unique, personal failures. When you understand that your reactions to financial stress are normal, something shifts. The shame starts to fade, and curiosity takes its place. This isn't about finding a quick fix. It's about recognition. Recognizing that our relationship with money is emotional before it's logical. That avoidance is a protective instinct, not laziness. And that inconsistency is usually a result of stress, not a lack of caring. When we can see ourselves clearly, the story of money becomes less about judgment and more about understanding. Have you ever noticed how your money habits just happen. They're not really choices anymore, are they? They're just routines, humming along in the background of your life. Nobody wakes up planning to repeat the same financial patterns over and over again. We just follow familiar paths because they feel known, even if they're a little uncomfortable. Sometimes, familiar stress can feel safer than unfamiliar change. One big reason these patterns stick around is because the feedback is so slow. The real consequences of our spending don't show up right away. A simple swipe of a card feels completely painless in the moment. The impact that arrives weeks later on a bill, totally disconnected from the original purchase. Our brains have a hard time connecting that cause and effect across time, especially when life is a whirlwind. So, we don't really learn the lesson when it would matter the most. Then there's this thing called mental accounting. We don't see our money as just one big pile. We label it. This is rent money. This is fun money. Oh, and here's the emergency fund. This feels organized, but it also lets us get away with some contradictions. You might feel totally broke, but still spend freely from your fun money bucket because your brain treats it as completely separate. It's a clever trick to reduce guilt, even if your overall financial picture is feeling the strain. Work adds another layer to all of this. For so many of us, our income is tied directly to our effort and even our identity. Long hours, side hustles, always being available, it all blurs the line between what we earn and what we're worth. So when we feel underpaid or undervalued, spending can become a way to compensate. It's a way to reclaim a little bit of pleasure or dignity after a draining day. It's not really about the thing you buy. It's about what that purchase represents emotionally. When the future feels uncertain, people tend to react in one of two ways. Some tighten their grip, tracking every single dollar to feel a sense of control and safety. Others loosen up, deciding that enjoying life now is better than worrying about a future you can't predict. Both are just attempts to manage anxiety. Neither one is wrong. They are emotional strategies shaped by our own unique experiences. What often gets missed is just how much effort people are already putting in just to stay afloat. Balancing bills, juggling schedules, caring for family, and navigating work leaves very little mental energy for deep financial reflection. But the financial system doesn't care if you're exhausted. Deadlines are still deadlines. Penalties are still automatic. Over time, we adapt by just doing what's necessary and avoiding the rest. This is why real change rarely starts with spreadsheets and budgets. It begins with a shift in how we see ourselves. It's that moment when you notice a pattern without immediately judging it. When you can observe your own behavior with curiosity instead of criticism. That small bit of distance is powerful. It allows you to ask questions instead of jumping to conclusions. The truth is, our money habits are learned through repetition, often under pressure, and anything that has been learned can be relearned. But that can only happen when we feel safe enough to look at our situation honestly. This isn't about some dramatic transformation. It's about acknowledging the weight we all carry, the invisible effort, the constant calculations, and the quiet resilience it takes to get through each month. When we recognize that reality, the story of money becomes a lot more human. It becomes less about blame and more about understanding how we navigate extraordinary demands. Day after day, just doing the best we can. Have you ever had one of those quiet moments, maybe late at night or on your birthday, where you suddenly just stop and think about your money? It's not a big dramatic event, no lottery win, no financial collapse. It's just a pause, and in that pause, you start to notice, not numbers on a spreadsheet, but feelings. Maybe you feel tired, frustrated, or like you're just running in place. It's the moment you realize you've been reacting to money-paying bills, meeting deadlines, handling emergencies instead of actually engaging with it. This isn't a sign of failure. It's just what happens when life moves faster than we can think. But something incredible happens in this moment of awareness. Money stops feeling like a judgment on your character and starts feeling like simple information. It might not be easy information, but it's something you can work with. Fear doesn't vanish, but it stops being the one in the driver's seat. It becomes a signal, not a master. Then you start to see the bigger picture. You realize how much of your financial life was shaped by things you never chose: the economy, family expectations, or just plain luck. This doesn't erase your responsibility, but it does add context. And with context, shame starts to fade away. You see your past decisions not as personal flaws, but as adaptations to the circumstances you were in. This is where real, patience comes in. Not the kind of patience that feels like a strict discipline, but a realistic understanding that financial change is slow and messy. Progress isn't a straight line. Some months will feel calm, others will be chaotic. Knowing this helps you stop expecting perfection from yourself in a world that was never perfect to begin with. You learn to give your finances steady, respectful attention, not obsessive anxiety. You remember that money is just one part of your life, not the entire measure of your worth. And as you look around, you see you're not alone. The silence around money makes our struggles feel personal, but they are incredibly common. Millions of people are navigating the same pressures and trade-offs every single day. Recognizing this doesn't fix the problems, but it does make you feel less isolated. This is how the story of personal finance can change. It becomes less about chasing some perfect outcome and more about building a relationship with money that doesn't drain all your energy. It's about awareness instead of avoidance, and understanding instead of fear. This moment of reckoning isn't the end of the journey. It's a new beginning. The lens has shifted, and once that happens, the story you tell yourself about your money and your life can finally begin to change too. Thanks for watching.